making clothes. So big overarching thing here. I'm going to talk about why you might want to make your own clothes and also bad reasons to want to make your own clothes. And then I'm going to touch a little bit on how to get started. But I'm going to share these slides because to some extent, that second half of how to get started is going to be a whole lot of vocabulary and stuff that is more useful as kicking off points for doing searches on your own and asking friends and searching on YouTube and so on, more than you're going to walk away in 25 minutes able to design and make clothes. That's probably not going to happen. Maybe I'm that good. We'll find out, but probably you're going to need to do more research. So I was going to delete that because this was a placeholder slide, but a story about a nerd. I wrote, and the nerd isn't me. I am a nerd, but this is a different nerd. I wrote a blog post a while back about making pockets, and a friend of mine commented saying, "Oh, it's going to be so great when these cool new 3D printers that are able to print fabric are widely available, because then everyone will be able to participate in making clothes." And I didn't know how to say that, like, needles and thread have existed for millennia. People have always been able to participate in making clothes without having to learn some fancy new piece of software that will let you design clothes to be 3D printed. So some of the impetus for this talk is just to remind you that clothes are old tech. They're still technology, but they're old technology, and the tools for making them do what you want are available and often cheap. So good reasons to make your own clothes. One is you're a strange person. This could be because you want to wear something that is not available, that is unconventional, that is either from the past or from the future. Maybe you have some particular need for a practical application that isn't served by clothing that exists. Maybe you just want to be eccentric. In general, if you want, like, the designer label to be, instead of Jacobs by Marc Jacobs for Marc by Marc Jacobs in collaboration with Marc Jacobs for Marc by Marc Jacobs, you. That's a reasonable reason to want to make clothes, because you're not going to get them anywhere.
I'm going to leave my mic on because I've just been laughing so hard, and I think you might need to hear that.
Yes, please do. This is I worked in an online secondhand women's fashion marketplace for a while as an engineer, and we did sell Marc by Marc Jacobs, and this is my favorite label of all time. Every time something came through with it, it made me laugh. The second reason you might want to make your own clothes is labor concerns. I remembered that there was a Dhaka, Bangladesh garment factory disaster, and when I searched for it, it turns out the internet said, "Which Dhaka garment factory disaster did you mean? The one that killed over 200 people, or the one that killed over 1,000 people?" The labor conditions around making fast fashion are pretty horrific, and there's basically no way to know when you buy a piece of clothing whether it was made in good conditions or bad conditions. So this is sort of the dark point of the presentation. Clothing is hard. And then the third reason is material. You may have a material allergy, or you may just find polyester clothing uncomfortable. It's really hard to find a care tag that's actually correct about what is used in a piece of clothing. There's also some concern about microplastics from shedding from polyester and other plastic materials clothing. So those are good reasons. And also maybe you just want to, maybe you think it's fun. Everybody should have an hobby. So bad reasons you might think of when you're thinking of I should make my own clothes. I mean, maybe nobody in the audience has had the thought maybe I should make my own clothes. Maybe you're having it for the first time now. But speaking of microplastics, if you're thinking the garment industry, the fast fashion industry is one of the worst for the environment. I've heard about all the water damage and poisonous runoff and all these things. I should make my own clothes to save the environment. That's a terrible idea. You should mend the clothes you have for the environment. This is true pretty much all the time. Don't buy an electric car. Keep the car you have running. That is better for the environment. Don't make new clothes. Just make sure the clothes you have last. Wash them in cold water. Hang them to dry. Mend them when they rip. That's better for the environment. Reason two might be you want clothes that fit really, really well. Designing clothes that fit really well is very hard, and there are tailors just everywhere. Like there are two within a block of me. Just take your clothes to a tailor. It's great. It's highly recommended. Everyone should do it. It costs very little money and very little time, and you don't have to learn anything other than how to say to the tailor, I would like my shirt to fit at the waist instead of being like a hot air balloon. And number three is money. Maybe you think, well, you know, the clothes I like are very expensive, and if I made them myself, I would save money. You won't. This is true of pretty much any creative hobby. If you think, you know, if you become a woodworker and you think, I can make that dining set cheaper than I can buy it, you can't. I mean, first of all, the clothes are made by Bangladeshi people in terrible conditions, so they're cheap for that reason. And you don't know what you're doing, so you're going to make mistakes, which is going to be expensive. And material is more expensive than you think it is. You can get around this. Like, you can go buy sheets at a thrift store and make clothing out of sheets. But don't decide to make your own clothing because you'll save money. You can figure out how to make it neutral monetarily if you're lucky. Cool. If after all that you say, I don't care, I want to do it anyway, one will say, well, maybe start listening to me instead of ignoring all the things I just said. But fair enough, you want to do it. Here are a whole bunch of things you'll have to learn and obtain. Don't stress. This presentation is a terrible way of communicating. You can do it. It's not that hard, but you can do it. It's not that hard. It's just there are a lot of moving pieces that as you progress, you'll want to learn. And because the language of which your clothery is specialized, I'm sort of collecting a bunch of words here that you can look up as you need them. What do you need in terms of physically, what do you need to get started? This is a matter of deciding how much money you have and how much time you have. There's a trade-off there. You are going to have to spend some money and some time, but whether you want to spend a lot of money and no time and very little time, or lots of time and very little money, up to you. So starting with notions. Notions is the sewing word for little stuff. It genuinely not more specific than that. The things I've started here, you probably actually genuinely need to get started. The other things, very useful. Chalk is what I'm holding in my hand right now. It is a piece of chalk tipped sort of, I don't know, like a ninja star, like a Beyblade, I don't know, something. Some kind of three-sided pointy thing with lacquer on the sides so you don't get your hands all chalky, but sharp on the edges so you can draw the lines up. The chalk washes out. That's all it's for. Everything else here, I think, is fairly self-explanatory. A tailor's thimble has a hole in the end. I highly recommend a tailor's thimble over the steel thimble that you inherited from your I don't know, with a pointy stick. Okay, in terms of a sewing machine, you don't have to buy a sewing machine. It turns out sewing machines are more recent than clothes. Clothes were invented first. So you can sew clothes by hand. There are plenty of people who do it. At the reference in the references section at the end, I will point at some people on YouTube who make beautiful clothing by hand because they like to use traditional methods. If you do buy a sewing machine, you can spend very little money. You can go to the thrift store once a week until a sewing machine appears and spend $30. Or you can get a computerized Bernina brand new and spend what you would spend on a small car. I don't recommend buying new and cheap for environmental reasons, but also because the quality is just not as good. This sewing machine is mine. It is 1 year older than I am, but it's a big beast of a steel machine, and so it runs fine despite that age. There are also a bunch of other kinds of machines. Again, I'm listing them here mostly so the vocabulary is available and you can look them up. You definitely don't need a serger or an overlock machine, you don't need any of these things just to get started. You need to know something about materials. Is it complicated? It shouldn't be complicated. It's so complicated. Did I do it? Sure. This column reasonably comprehensible, but really, cotton, linen, and wool pretty much it in terms of natural fibers. There are others like silk would also be in that list, and there are other plant fibers. Bamboo I don't put there because it's pretty highly processed by the time it becomes. Am I back? Sure. Right. Yada yada yada. You can research this until the stars turn cold. And then in terms of how those fibers are woven into fabric, there are 150 words for different ways of weaving. Oh my God, why is it so hard? And determining what the properties of the fabric are based on that weave, even worse. Again, you don't need to know a whole lot about this to get started, but you need to know enough that you don't go to the fabric store and pick something based on its color, because you will regret it when you finally finish your garment and put it on and you look like you're wearing a burlap sack, and feel like you're wearing a burlap sack. Probably half of comfort and appearance come from getting good material, which goes back to expense. There we go. Okay, so you have all this stuff. You now have a room full of nonsense and fabric, and what are you going to do with it? Surprise! No matter how much time, how much money you spent, you also still have to learn some skills. I'm sorry. So if you're going to sew by hand, there are some basic stitches to learn. These are, like most handcraft, very simple to learn, and they'll look like garbage for the first month that you do them, because it's more about the muscle memory than it is about knowing where the needle should go next. The difference between knowing where the needle should go next and being able to make it go there. Machine, easier. Whatever machine you bought probably has 20 different stitches. You need 3 of them. A straight stitch, something to overlock the edges of the fabric so it doesn't fray, and something for when you're working with knits so that it can stretch without the thread breaking. Another skill is fitting. That's just hard. It's just hard. It seems like it should be easy. It seems like you should be able to measure yourself and then adjust the pattern to those measurements, cut the fabric, sew it together, and it should fit you. That is not how it happens. So basically two issues there. One, you should make a prototype before you use that expensive material I told you to buy. You should make a prototype of the garment in something cheap. There are two words for doing that in sewing world. One is toile and one is muslin. Both of those words are also kinds of fabric. They're cheap kinds of fabric. Thus, making something out of cheap fabric is called a toile or a muslin. And the other is like practicing a lot and talking to a lot of people, because a lot of fit is counterintuitive. The classic example of this is if you buy a shirt ready-made in the store and you lift your arms over your head, probably it will try and pull out of your waistband. That's because the hole that your arm goes through in the body of the shirt is quite large, because they don't know how big your arm is. They need to fit a wide variety of people. But counterintuitively, to have more room to maneuver your arm, you need to make the armhole smaller. The tighter it fits around your arm, the more you'll be able to move your arm without the body of the shirt moving. And fitting is full of these counterintuitive things where to get more room, you have to provide, like you have to shrink a hole. To provide more fabric, you have to shrink a seam. It's horrendous. I don't know why anyone would do any of this. So, and then the last skill, pattern making. So starting out, you probably want to buy a pattern and make a pattern a couple times. There are lots of places you can buy patterns. Again, resources at the end of the presentation where you can buy things. A pattern is just going to be a big fold out piece of tracing paper that you cut to a line that says, are you size this? Cut here. And you cut to that line, you pin it to fabric, you cut the fabric that size, you sew it together following the instructions that came with the pattern. It's like a model kit. It's very followable. You will eventually hit instructions that you don't understand, but you muddle your way through. But in the long term, pattern making is what allows you to say, I want something that doesn't exist in the world yet. How will I make it? You do that by making a pattern. Pattern making is amazingly like arts and crafts in school, in that it's all construction paper and a lot of cutting and taping. Again, resources at the end of what of some people who do this professionally to learn from. But that's sort of the last of your skills. Here are some clothes I made because I know people will ask. Weirdnesses about the clothes I've made. Note that my jeans have no pockets in the normal places. They have a swallowtail back. This is sort of the gentleman farmer look. They can be, they have suspender buttons. I also made the shirt. It doesn't have side seams or shoulder seams. Like, they're just a bunch of weird things I'm trying out to see what's going on. Instead of side pockets and back pockets, I have these weird side of my leg pockets. I think they're neat because, like, in this photo, I have my phone, my wallet, my keys, and a pen in my pockets, and I don't have any weird bulges on where the pants are close fitted. Ditto here. And then on this shirt, another fun customization. I have some embroidered, a goofy monogram on the inside of the cuff, so when I roll up my sleeves, get a little flash of haha. Other than that, here are the resources page. YouTube is full of people sewing. It's really great. I mean, compared to 10 years ago, 10 years ago, I would have said the only way to learn to sew is to find someone who knows and have them teach you. Now, that's still probably the best way, but it's definitely not the only way. You can absolutely learn from YouTube. There are so many stern, stoic Eastern European women working in small clothes factories who are making videos about how to do things. It's incredible. Ditto Instagram. The sewing hashtag on Instagram is full of very friendly, nice people. And you don't have to do like just post something you made with the hashtag showing, and 7 people will come to tell you how great it is and how great you are, and to have a conversation about what you did. And finally, keep your eye out for this book. It's hard to find. It's probably the best, most comprehensive reference in English for modern sewing. And they made it for a couple years, and then they started cutting material from it. Now it's this slim little paperback that's useless. But if you can find the 1970s version of it, incredible. There are local fabric stores that sell fabric. They will give you guidance. They will sell patterns, all that good stuff. There are online stores. If you want a very specific kind of material, there are often specialty shops. Like Harris Tweed is location protected. It's only made on one island, and by local weavers, and you can just like they are online, and you can say, I would like to buy tweed directly from the person who wove it. eBay and thrift store full of equipment as people's mothers and grandmothers die and they don't know what to do with their sewing machines and other equipment, they sell it off. And it's all perfectly good. Cool. Where are we? 25. Cool. So a couple minutes for questions. Here we go.
Your pockets are the best.
Thanks.
How long have you been doing this? Like altering your clothes or making your own clothes?
On and off for 10 years, but only like all of that stuff is the past year. I think in like October, would that be about right? Yeah, I said, you know what? I'm not gonna let my dreams be dreams, and rekit it up to really make from scratch instead of just mending.
That's awesome. To be able to make your own clothes and to experiment, especially with the pockets.
Yeah, it's fun to be able to say, I have this vision. I don't know if it's good, but I can find out, instead of just saying, wouldn't it be neat if? There's a second component there of the bravery to wear weird clothes in public, but we'll get there.
I think you're doing fine. Your clothes look fine.
Oh, you haven't seen the weird clothes though.
Oh.
You only showed us the few that you're most comfortable showing.
I showed you the stuff that's like, yeah, I can dress this down and people won't notice. I have visions for an ascot made out of beetle wings, and that's going to be hard to find the appropriate occasion to wear.
I am an Eastern European, and all of my family were Eastern Europeans, obviously. And sewing is a huge part of the culture. And sewing in their way is also a big part of the culture. Like, I will tell you how to sew because this is the way to sew. That's how they sew. Also, growing up, I was very tall and thin, so I was their person to try out all their weird ideas on. Jodhpurs, for a very long period of time, they wanted to experiment with jodhpurs so badly, and I had a long period there as wearing jodhpurs because they had to make their jodhpur dreams come true.
Look, I mean, it gives me pocket space anyway.
Oh yes, the things that you could put in those big thigh things were just, it was amazing. I could carry several cell phones in there. But your pockets are really the best, though. My boyfriend and your blog post that you did on pockets was so brilliant, and it inspired an hour discussion because he has those pockets on one pair of pants that he has, and he bought them somewhere, and he wants all pockets to be there. He says that is just the place, the most righteous place to put a pocket. It just is.
Yeah, it definitely has some convenience.
Well, I mean, the thigh doesn't move, like, it doesn't move as much as what the hips do. So,
Yeah, I'll post the blog post. I went into this whole thing about that. That is the confluence of
Okay.
where there's enough room to put something, but enough support that it won't swing around. I mean, some of the challenge there also is in men's trousers. Until recently, you would have been wearing a jacket, so you can put your pockets up on the waist because no one will see them.
Right.
There can be a bulge there. It doesn't matter. But once we got rid of the jacket, now you look weird with your giant wallet in your back pocket.
Well, we have another opinion on pockets, and I want your feeling on this. He is filled with hatred and bile for men's shirts that have pockets with flaps on them, and then you have to button the flap down. It's like, there is no point for that. What is your feeling on that?
Well, there are lots of reasons to add a detail to a piece of clothing, and function is only one of them. I think like a safari shirt like that is in part, and I got in a lot of trouble for saying this in the Pockets blog post, so I'll say it again. Whatever, I don't learn. It's sort of cosplay, in that, and this is true for the whole history of fashion, right? Why do we wear ties? Because we saw Russian military wearing ties, and it was awesome. And we went, yeah, some of that, please. And they slowly evolved from there. But I think a lot of those, like a safari shirt, cargo pants, it's not so much about practicality as it is about conveying the sort of person who needs 15 pockets. I'm that dynamic adventurer type who, I've got a map and a compass and fire starters. I need all these pockets to live my adventurous life, and the pockets convey that, whether the pockets have anything in them or not. Just like you smoke because you want to be the you smoke because you want to look like a cowboy. You you might wear a shirt with pockets with flaps because you want to look like you work in the Australian outback. Anyway, that's my time. So take care, everybody. Thanks for listening.